Welcome, welcome, welcome to our very first official, I guess, session of our global expansion with our great friend, Ariel, who has been shaping my ideas about autistic culture since our first fateful meeting in Brazil many, many years ago. I have been so thrilled for this particular hangout. I hope it lives long and prospers because it's there's a lot of interest out there for this. So yeah, I will just turn it over to you. I'll leave myself unmuted if that's okay, but if there's any problem, let me know. And if I have anything to say, I'll raise my hand and you can call on me. And with that, I will turn it over to Ariel.
All right, thank you so much, Don. Thank you, Roger, and Marcia and Allison for keeping us all organized and getting this technology up here. So my name is Ariel Cascio, and I am going to be hosting Living Ethics Hangouts as part of Cultural Autism Studies at Yale. Something we're going to do, at least for the moment, we're thinking about every 2 months or so. And the reason that I am hosting these is because I'm kind of a professor of ethics, sort of. I am an assistant professor in something called the Center for Bioethics and Social Justice at Michigan State University. And so in that position, I do a couple of things. I do teach ethics to medical students, and I also do research on autistic culture and sort of cultural practices around this concept we call autism and neurodiversity and how we all get along, or don't and could get along better. And my background is in cultural anthropology, so that's how I got to know Don's work. Don coming from biological anthropology, but you can't really separate all the subfields, right? We say there's divisions, but we really just we're all kind of figuring this life thing out. And so living ethics, the title we've kind of given to this series, this comes from a group I'm involved with based out of Montreal, the Pragmatic Health Ethics Research Unit. And we have been working on this concept of living ethics, and it's kind of a pun. It means a couple of things. It means ethics is something that we live. It's living, and we're doing it every day. It's not this just like special section of one class that you have to do. Ethics, we're always living ethics, and we can reflect on that. It's living in that it's growing and changing, like all living things. It's not some fixed set of, rules or principles or ideas. And then living in the sense of like bioethics, if that's the bio is like life, it's like living. It's not necessarily biological living, right? There's all sorts of things that go into that. We didn't want to be too biomedical. So with that pun aside, just in general, like what is ethics? Like ethics is the study of key questions about, moral existence. Questions like what is the good life? How do we achieve it? How do we get there? Like, how do we know what's good? And how do we accomplish that? What do we owe one another? And just in general, kind of what should we do about kind of anything? And so through this series, if there's any sort of things that anyone would like to talk about, just let me know. We can have a topic around it. I'm thinking we're going to have a specific topic for each session, but also like they're going to be casual. It's going to be chill. You can raise your hand if you want to. You can also just start talking or typing or waving or sharing art that you've got in your space, whatever works for you. I've already talked like longer than I love talking. That's not true. I love talking, but I also love listening. So I guess I just wanted to start by having anybody who is interested in sharing who they are and why they clicked on this link, kind of what brings you here today, and we can get to know each other before we get into today's topic. Anybody so moved?
Yeah, so I am actually not doing research at the moment. I had a car accident and I have very limited amount of time I can spend on the computer. However, my background is in linguistic anthropology, and then I moved to biomed anthropology. In linguistic anthropology, we use lived experience narratives all the time as data. We also use open-ended interviewing and participant observation, and these are methods that I think desperately need to be brought into autism research. Using psychological instruments that are like standardized, normed, it's like so irrelevant to so much autistic experience. And when my kids and I were going through the process, I'm diagnosed, my ex-husband isn't, but probably is. We could not answer a lot of those questions, and we told them these are not well defined. These are not scientific questions. You do not define your terms. You do not give context. These are not relevant. I mean, it was very difficult for us. And I'm in an autistic researchers group as well, where this is very common that for an autistic individuals to run into this instrument that's been prepared by neurotypicals, it's this complete misfit. And so I also have my ideas about the evolutionary um, I'm losing my mind, but like why autism may have been selected and preserved in the human, genetic diversity. But I am, when it comes to ethics, I am very concerned about research being done in departments that their work is then made marketable and charged for as a business, investor-backed business, with shareholders as opposed to anthropology, which is much, we don't have professional anthropologists going out making billions of dollars imposing. My second, where I use working with the community, having the community you're studying be part of the research is very important, and that's where I was when I had to drop out. But those are two things, both the lived experience narratives and the working with the community that you're studying, like co-partnering with that, are two methods that I really would love to see brought into autism research, and where I really think it should be, not in where it is now. So that's what brought me here. So I'm really, really excited. I don't know if I can contribute, but I do want to follow along, and I'm sort of an evangelist for pushing, these research methods into the field.
Awesome. I love it. I'm sort of an evangelist for like methods choices are ethics choices. That is something I'm trying to coin. So everyone should say that.
Hi, thank you. I just love hearing the intro because that is a really nice segue into what I do. You would love my writing because I touch on a lot of the subjects that you just brought up. I write under the name, I run a website called, and everyone there is welcome there. Right now, I have a great deal of imposter syndrome in this group because I am not from academia. I couldn't make it in academia. I'm one of those failed wunderkinds that comes from the punk rock underground, right? But last Saturday I gave a talk on her Medium Day, and I'm here for the ethics talk, and I really so happy to see this in the U.S. because most of the autistic-led and protected spaces I've had experience in have been in the UK. So I'm super jazzed to see this and to see stimpunks happening here. And I'm very intimidated by everybody's credentials, but I'm gonna be, the a-hole that says it. We're at an ethics talk about autism, talking about ethical autism research. And one of the reasons I almost didn't join this group was its association to genetic research into autism. which is very closely aligned to the eugenics programs we talk about, dehumanization of us, and the idea that selective designer babies might erase the autistic expression from the genome. And so I'm gonna be the bug that says it. I think that would be like a whole episode, a whole like meeting should be really like, we're all here, and this is a neuroaffirming experience, and yet the framework, and that's the first thing my autistic peer support, like the person I see, said to me. I was like, I joined it, and he said, "Oh, but it's part of the Sparks." And I said, I know, we're gonna see. So I'm here, and I love the energy, and I'd love to sit in this energy with all of you wonderful, overqualified people to have a conversation with me and see, how that feels to you guys. Because it feels weird to me. But I'm happy to have this space.
I am glad you are here feeling weird with me. Dawn, go ahead.
This is a perfect, excuse me, opportunity. We say this all the time, and I want it to get out there that this is not about that. We have a lot of wonderful academic people, but some of our most moving sessions have been people telling their life stories and just their lived experience. We're building a community here, and hence the ethics, where there is no hierarchy, there is no top down. Every single facet is reflecting every single other facet. I want everyone to feel welcome here. This is a warm place to be, so that's all.
And with the, I feel like an imposter being like an ethicist, right? Because my background is in anthropology. Like, it is not in ethics. What does it mean to be an ethicist? But the little bit that I know about ethics, I appreciate your allusion to being like the gadfly that sort of stings and points out what we really need to be thinking about. That's excellent.
Yeah, that gadfly function's so important. So I'm also glad you're here. Imposter syndrome, I don't know where I don't have it, but I'm a humanities person, not a social scientist, recently self-diagnosed, and so that's one reason I'm here. But also found out recently, I'm going to be teaching a class, bringing ethics into, the class is called, basically I'm having to do a crash course in ethics and just try to figure out okay, what does it mean and what are the perspectives, and so I thought when this popped up on my Facebook feed, I'm like, oh well, we got the autism, we got the ethics, just roll with it. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Sorry, it took me a minute to find that mute button there. Hi, I am in academia, but I'm a creative writer, which makes us like the oddballs out sometimes in the academia world. And I'm here, years ago I was diagnosed ADHD, and then as I got older, they were like, actually we think it's autism spectrum, and I've been learning more about that. I'm also a faculty advisor for the student neurodiversity group at my university. And after I got tenure, I started a faculty staff group because we really needed a safe space for that. I saw this topic and was really excited. It's also, there are other exciting topics this semester, but they happen to be during a class I teach. So this is the one I can make. So I'm just really grateful to be in community and to learn from you all, and hopefully to just gain more ideas for the groups that I'm trying to support as well.
So fun. And for this series, we did kind of test out putting it at different times each time, since we know that some people might be in class right now, or having different things, and in different time zones as well. I'd say we often have people from all North American time zones, many European time zones. I think we've had Singapore at one point. So we're kind of trying to shake it up for that reason too. And we'll usually have recordings too, so we can work on that.
Quick, Ariel?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So, I really do want to address this issue of research and some of the research that, as a university, at least Yale participates in a lot of different kinds of biomedical research. And I completely understand and see the concerns with some of the more biologically based things like the Spark study. Um, my view of this is that this is the only way that we're going to make impact, in changing the narrative and approach is, we need to be able to, work with these sort of the old guard, so to speak, and create some influence and direction. Uh, if we avoid them, if we try to shut them out, yeah, I think that we do end up losing a lot of opportunities. So some of the work is uh, it's not always going to mesh 100%, but I do see this as a process, in which the landscape of research is changing with the people it's attempting to help. And it's sort of long overdue. And I think this project sort of dives directly into it. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Thank you. And writing that their website's Autistic Realms and talking in the chat as well. And I see in the chat changing some diapers. So welcome back to video. Hello. And saying this is about the ethics of working with Spark. Not particularly. That is definitely something we can talk about. And I have written this idea of having a dedicated meeting too to talking about genetic research ethics. So it's kind of about everything and whatever we want it to be. Anyone else so moved to share something before I introduce what I thought maybe today's topic?
Sure. I'm new to the group. So, hi everyone. I'm really happy to be here. My name is. I am a father of 3 small kids. So, like today, I could complain about being tired, but that's just every day. There's my. I think it blurs the background. I'll get on camera real quick, but that's my autistic 6-year-old kiddo. He is, my heart. He's the reason that I know that I'm autistic, because I related to the questions on the questionnaires, for the whole school, evaluation process and whatnot. So it's like, I had no idea what autism was or ADHD or anything, honestly. So it's like, these people are crazy. These are all normal things, right? Like, quote unquote normal, right? Like, what? So that's, that's me. I'm a CPA. I'm a accountant, here in the state of sort of was born and raised. So, a little far away from you guys. So I'm glad that we can do this, like, over the internet. It's pretty awesome. And I mean, what else would I tell you? That's, oh, I have ADHD as well. So that's, I'm going to be medicated on these things. So that's been tremendously helpful in and of itself, right? And then I guess like my maladaptive coping mechanism, I think, is also very important. Turns out it was OCPD, which is different than OCD. So if you guys are interested, go on psychologytoday.com and find yourself a nice little article there, and you'll see, what I'm talking about. So, and I guess that's it. That's how I ended up in accounting, basically, just always doing things that, I thought you were supposed to do. I'm a huge scripter, huge masker. I'm learning to take off the mask. So these things are, amazing for me. I'm very interested in advocacy. Having like the typical, I think, cliche, midlife crisis since I've got my diagnoses now. So I, just got kind of tired of the CPA world. A lot of the narcissism, dare I say, in corporate America. My psychiatrist agrees with me, or that's where I got that, rather, I should say, to give him all the credit. But so, learning a lot. Super. This has obviously become like a special interest type thing. So, yeah. Just initial impressions. It's amazing to actually be somewhere can feel the energy, being completely different. I'm not, I don't know, it's, I've always approached social situations where I never cared about, I don't know, I never judging the other person or whatever, and I never got that same energy back. So this is, pretty cool to be here with you guys. So, I forgot your name. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, but I'm also a punk rock kid, so, which is funny to say. It's like a CPA, it's psychology, life comes at you fast, but I always enjoyed that aspect of it, where it was like actively embracing folks like myself who didn't quite fit into any other group. So, anyways, cheers, y'all.
Cheers. Oh, hi, Kitty. Just say hi.
To the kitty. This is Mr. Kitty.
Hi, Mr. Kitty.
Thank you for joining us.
Great cats. All
We'll
right.
get to animal ethics, right, Ariel?
I'm sorry, Don, I didn't catch the beginning of that.
I just said, and we'll get to animal ethics many times, I'm sure, as well. That'll be interesting.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So much to talk about there between, I know we've talked a number of times at different sessions about our relationships with non-human animals, and I am thinking of talking a bit today about research ethics, and certainly there's a lot with animal research ethics as well that I have not touched on nearly enough, nearly as much as I would like to. So I think that that is fascinating. And I'm also really interested in the kind of metaphors. I don't even know, not metaphors exactly, dehumanization, right? And how we balance avoiding dehumanization without denigrating our non-human environment, co-living things. Yeah, I'm not articulating that very well, but I think that there's a lot here. Playing Nintendo Switch is very important. Do whatever you need to do for this space. We're just chilling. Yeah.
So I don't, again, if I interrupt too much, let me know, because I have a tendency to input up. But if we focus on autism as a nervous system condition, and that nervous system responses are mediated through the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, and we contextualize that within evolution. I know a lot of people don't understand evolution. We haven't done a good job teaching it in schools, but most, humans have a lot of crossover with the nervous systems of a lot of other animals. And so I think that we really don't need to actually make that separation, worry about the ethics of animal versus human versus non-human, because basically we all are running on the same nervous system. And anyway, that was just what I was going to throw in here. And this is also something that I think is missing from a lot of research, because a lot of research looks at autism from the outside rather than the inside. And when you look at nervous system differences and how HPA activation affects somebody's fight or flight response, or even their life history theory was one of the things that was in it. It's like how you are primed in utero for either a long or short life history. And I think that we can learn a lot about autism and neurotypical, whatever, as well, by looking at different kind of species that are non-human and what we share and don't share with them. So.
Putting in the chat, I like to say more than human rather than non-human is a personal choice. So I thank you for that suggestion as well. I heard that and it didn't come out of my mouth, but I like it too.
I'm so aligned with today, but right now I'm kind of exploring and writing about the possibility of autistic burnout being seen as a form of dysautonomia or autonomic nervous system dysfunction. And so very aligned with what you're saying. And I would just want to point to a paper, I do not know the full title, but if you just search intense worlds and intense worlds theory, I think you're going to love that paper. It looks at the differences in different brain regions and how rats that express autistic traits use different neurotransmitters in those regions. And I think that you would really love that paper. I write about it a lot.
Markram is the first author, and I think possibly also the second author. I think it might be Markram and Markram, but at least one of the authors is Markram. So I wanted to bring something to you all today, which is I'm actually presenting on behalf of also my co-author Alice Scavarda. She could not make it here today, but Alice and I have recently had a book accepted by Cambridge University Press. We're calling Qualitative Research with Neurodivergent People, Methodological and Ethical Opportunities. And Alice is a sociologist in Italy, and I am an anthropologist in the United States who has done research in Italy. And we wanted to write this book kind of providing an overview of different qualitative methods, including arts-based methods, and including, or really kind of centering participatory methods that I was talking about earlier. So we'll have, I mean, I can share the screen if that's helpful, or I can talk through it. But we plan on having different sections, one talking about recruitment and community engagement as you prepare for the research, then on specific methods of interviews, participant observation and shadowing, visual methods like photo voice and comics-based research, and then sections on collecting that data and concluding the research and kind of sharing the results. And one thing that we're really, I mean, we're looking for a couple of things here. I mean, just discussing like what are some of the things that we should really make sure that we do talk about, that readers need to know, especially people who are new to doing qualitative research involving, and this, sort of, I work largely with autistic people, and Alice does with autistic people and folks with Down syndrome, and we've also worked with folks with sort of other differences that are currently classified under the language of the brain, is how I think about it. So that's one thing we're looking at. And then the other thing that we are looking for is just that we are very aware that neither Alice nor I identify as autistic or have been diagnosed as autistic. Neurotypical might be a bit of a strong word, but certainly we're writing from a bit of an outsider perspective. And we do want to talk about insider-outsider dynamics, but we also want to look for, ways to involve autistic people in the writing, whether it's a section or, other types of contributions. Like, we're very open to all different things. We're in the early stage. This is due to the publisher not until April. And we have some leeway to say like, hey, we want to add like a co-author for this chapter, or we're a small section, or there's sort of other different ways we can work on this. So we also just wanted to kind of open the door to collaboration and see what people are currently working on that you might be interested in sharing. I threw out like 6 questions at once there, so I'm going to stop talking now and see what you think. Is your hand up again or still up? Yeah.
What I'm working on right now is a way too long manuscript of involving.
Always.
I do cultural studies, and especially music, and so when I self-diagnosed and then was diagnosed because of my self-diagnosis, I was like, it was like I learned so much so fast, and I still am, like, all the time. I decided to turn the cultural studies lens on myself and look at, so as a punk rocker in the 80s, how was I using that music and that culture to mask? Like, in other words, how was I gathering cultural capital for myself to basically confront a world that every second of my life terrified the hell out of me? And how do I be the scary one, not the one who's scared all the time, basically? And so I'm contrasting it with this period of my life where I'm not saying this is cause and effect, but around the time I self-diagnosed, I became a major Grateful Dead fan. This is a about face from Black Flag and Circle Jerks, and so and I'm trying to make it make sense through the lens of neurodivergence. That's it.
Cool.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
add that as an autistic, interdisciplinary, as you said, anthropologist, I think it's very important to acknowledge that when autistic people are interfacing with neuronormative culture, what we're coming up against is a cultural gap. This is a different kind of phenomenon than people have been talking about. This isn't just about brain chemistry or whatever. It's cultural. It's a cultural way of perceiving and processing information and being in the world. We actually experience it differently. In a relational way, and that's very cultural.
And that, I'm sorry, Don, that's what really struck me about when I looked back at my friends and me in the 80s. That's what really struck me about Deadhead culture was it was not directly autistic. Like I wouldn't say it like that, but it was much more neurodivergent in so many ways than punk rock culture was. Not that there weren't lots of people, NDs in both places, because there totally were, but it was just there was a cultural difference that I'm looking at. So yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what I got out of goth culture when I was young, which is I mean musician people tell me, but I think kind of it has like it's an inheritance of punk, right? Kind of coming after. I mean, I enjoyed the music, of course, but I also remember people saying things like, okay, like how do you like raise goth kids? This was a discussion they were having, like, how do you raise goth kids? What are like goth values that we want to instill in the kids? And it's things like, mommy, why does that person have a tongue piercing? Well, probably because they think that it looks cool. What do you think looks cool? So there was this kind of ethos of diversity of expression and respect that I think I wasn't really getting necessarily from, in certain other it was like an ethos of like respect and aesthetic that a lot of other aesthetics that I was confronted with in adolescence were very much like, you have to wear this and it has to be like that and it has to have this brand and you have to pay this much for it and all of those things. So yeah, different decades maybe.
Religion too, right? Like I grew up Catholic, so the goth iconry was very, very much, me individuating from that.
Absolutely. All right, we've got some rich stuff in the chat here too. Oh, go ahead. Who's speaking? I didn't see.
I was just jumping in again because it's hard to control myself.
Bring it in. Bring it in.
I'm so excited. I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so yes, we search for ways to express ourselves, and it's no accident that sensitive, creative people end up in these, hot pots of culture, like goth and new wave was engineered completely by autistic people. And we find, like, we don't know what it is exactly, but we recognize it. Yeah.
Anyone used any of these sort of musical modes of, integrating that into research, or any ways we should be integrating that into research?
Well, I think, the values in general, to kind of stir a little, our values in general are so important to know before we are engaged in collaborative research, because we have a different value system, and that's something that's come up in Casey again and again and again. His value system is different, and it's strong. It seems to be stronger, dare I say. And I think identifying those things and talking about those ethics is so important now, what you're doing, because yeah, I think we're actually starting in a completely different paradigm. This isn't just how do we tweak what's there, but how do we approach this in a completely different cultural paradigm.
Can you give an example of the way that sort of different people involved in Casey, I'll turn this to, I know we've got 4 of you here, have like identified a value difference, whether that's what the difference is or like what questions you ask of each other to figure it out? Can you give an
Well,
example?
for example, I mean, there's this kind of beautiful unspoken understanding that's really beautiful. But things like, as an example, conflict, the way we approach conflict is different. I think we take a problem solving approach rather than necessarily, I can't speak for everyone, but rather than a completely emotional approach. I've seen people under very tense circumstances build together solutions or broaden perspectives by sharing different experiences. It's just a different kind of flow. And I think in the past, people have just like taken one autistic person, one autistic person, one autistic person on the forums and all. And it's divide and conquer. But you see, when you get whole groups of people together, these ethics are generated in a culturally dynamic way. And so I think we need more autistic people involved. You can't just bring one in and say, how should we do this? It's a dynamic, ongoing cultural process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I do really feel the dynamic vibes, right? We're not necessarily a list of, well, then we'll do this and then this and then this and then this works. We have this agenda. I'm not always good at sticking to the agenda in a way that I think is dynamic. Hopefully, we found some good times with that.
I can add to that Dawn and I have been collaborating in a really fun and interesting way, trying to find information about emotion regulation and expression in autism. And I'm studying emotion expression through a cultural and linguistic lens currently. So I'm really looking at how different cultures, in sort of a constructivist lens, how different cultures really construct the emotion sharing between the individuals of that culture. And so thinking about that and talking with Dawn and learning so much in KC has really given a lot of richness into this. And so we're working on really studying that and examining that in sort of an anthropological way, not from a biomedical lens in any way at all. So really just thinking about that and how, the autistic culture having its many individuals who express and talk about and experience emotion in different ways is super valuable and amazing, and something to kind of be mindful of as a cultural expression rather than thinking of it as something that needs intervention or something else. Yeah.
I was reading a fascinating discussion in the chat up here about sort of cultures of communication and bluntness and direct communication being valued. And so sort of different ways that this same sort of direct communication style, different contexts in which that's the norm or not the norm, but being able to recognize that it is a valid way of communicating. I know that like as a non-autistic person, I've written a bit, particularly in Italian, about like what I have learned from autistic people. Like, how have I tried to like learn this culture as an outsider? This is one of the things that we do think is valuable about the outsider perspective in ethnography, is we sort of come in and learn something that's not gonna maybe feel normal, like is gonna be a surprise to us all the time. And so like one of the things I've learned is to more directly express what I mean and what I'm feeling. You know, I remember several occasions in my field work where someone would maybe like think that I was hurt or upset, and I'm not, and having to like directly express that like I bumped my head, but I am okay, because it won't necessarily be clear from, you know, how I'm acting or like my facial expression or something like that. And the autistic people that I, you know, hang out with all the time, like y'all, and that I was hanging out with at the time, like absolutely empathize and care and want to make sure I'm doing well, even if they're expressing that or reading that in a different way. But there, I was grappling with a lot of stereotypes that like, oh, like autistic people don't, you know, care if someone else is feeling bad. And like my experience was the total opposite. They cared very much and wanted to make sure I was not feeling bad. And I learned to express myself very clearly, of like, it is actually, I'm actually okay. And maybe the opposite. If I were mad, I would probably have to tell someone. But I found that people maybe tended to assume I was when I wasn't. And I'm hearing a lot of things now in my current research about, you know, people having experiences where people were mad at them a lot, right? And they necessarily don't understand why people were mad at them. And so wanting to really make sure. So it comes from a lot of things. Like there's cultural norms and there's sort of history of personal experiences. I went off on a tangent there, but I think you get what I'm going for. So, I learned to express myself by being an outsider integrating into a different culture is what I'm trying to say.
So this has not been tested. This is just a hypothesis of mine. And so I mentioned again how there's a lot of autistic people who kind of relate more to animals than to, say, other humans, and how we all run on the same nervous system. And I think lots of times there are neurotypical humans who are expressing things. So we're always told, oh, autistic people don't read body language correctly. Sometimes I think that we do, but we are looking underneath what the neurotypical person wants to be expressing. So if somebody is in I spend a lot of time with dogs. If I see somebody who is in a fearful or aggressive pose and they are telling me I'm not angry, then I'm going to go with the body language. You know what I'm saying? So I think that sometimes humans express things non-verbally that they aren't aware they are, or they don't want people to know. There's a lot more deception. I'm trying to put on this image that I'm confident, and meanwhile there's the autistic kid noticing like, oh no, you know what? I noticed that you were, I don't know how you were injured, you know, favoring her right leg. It's obvious that she has an injury there, even though she's telling us she doesn't. So I think there's it's not so much that autistic people don't read body language as we do it differently, and maybe we have some skills at certain things that neurotypicals don't. So again, it's another one that needs to be investigated. We can't make assumptions without asking people openly, you know, why do you feel like you understand animals more than humans? And if it's more like, well, animals they don't lie, they're more straightforward. And I do, as somebody who, I don't want to use the word, the phrase, I'm not going to use that phrase, often says things out loud that other people don't want said, and then gets in trouble for why did you say that? And it's like, well, it's pretty obvious if you could read, you know? So this whole like, anyway, so I'm just going to say that this is again, I guess, the example of the double empathy problem, where when neurotypicals, especially diagnosticians, come in and say autistic people can't do such and such and such, it's like, no, it's just a difference. And again, interrupt me if I'm speaking too much, but one of the things that I've noticed a lot in my interactions online with people who are trained, whose jobs are in, certain behavioral psychology programs. I mean, rigid, inflexible, black and white thinkers do not want to change, do not want to learn new information, want to keep doing things the same way they were 60 years ago. These are behavior traits that you find a lot in, say, proponents of ABA therapy. And so I start to question how much of the symptoms of autism are actually projections of their own character flaws onto autistic people. Because when you are on social media, literally deleting in real time autistic people's comments saying, wait, I disagree with you. If you are silencing people, if you are refusing to listen, that is the very inflexibility, rigidity, black and white thing. I mean, you've got the whole, and so my comment here of psychology, particularly behavioral psychology, not having the tradition of self-analysis, I think is a huge, huge problem. And yeah.
I just put an article in the chat that I wrote, kind of a similar thing about rigidity and how professionals use that language some years back. Someone go ahead.
Oh, I just want to make a note here about protoculture, and we've talked a lot about this, like how autistic people seem to understand this universal protoculture in which other animals participate, and the rules are they're universal understandings about how to interact in a decent way. And protoculture isn't simple. In fact, it's extraordinarily complex because you have your own kind of holographic mindful matrix. You're also extending into their mindful holographic matrix while you're both aware of the holographic matrix of the environment. It's incredibly complex, and I'm proud of that. But I do think that protoculture will emerge as something significant as we ask questions about ethics.
This is where I think that this hangout is so rich. I was also saying in the chat, neurodivergent people tend to be authentic. Others get frustrated for us not playing along. And comments and other comments that I've heard, all over the place. I think we could have a whole session on lying. Like, what is a lie? And how much lying is ethically acceptable? What kinds of lies are ethically acceptable? And do people have like a right to their lies? I was involved in a project a bit ago involving something called biomusic. And the idea of biomusic is it was supposed to like read your, it did, read your like heart rate and like sweatiness of your fingers and some other metric that I'm always forgetting what it is, maybe your respiration rate, and translate it into music that other people could hear. And the example that I always used on this from like an ethics perspective is like, who gets to hear the music and who gets to choose who gets to hear the music? Because maybe I'm in a job interview and I want to project myself as really calm, but my heart is racing. And some people won't notice that. They'll just see the calm that I'm projecting. But if someone can tell my heart is racing, is that fair? Which should count more? My heart racing and me being nervous, me projecting calmness? I think there's so many different angles and so many different potentially right answers on this that it could make kind of its own topic. It doesn't have to be as high tech as the biomusic thing, but just like if someone's words and body language contradict, what are we supposed to do with that?
I'm alarmed at how much gaslighting seems to be foundational to neuronormative culture.
Oh yeah, that's a huge component of lying. I'm gonna write that down too. Forget exactly what you said, but gaslighting's like key to neurotypical culture. Is that what it was? Neuronormative culture?
Normative culture, yeah, I don't want to blame any one person because it's just sort of a culture a phenomenon of culture, but yeah, it seems like a lot of neuronormative culture is based on gaslighting. And if you don't have a structure, a basic structure of truth, like I was talking about that proto-cultural awareness, if you don't have that, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Culture.
Yeah, fantastic.
I want
Sarah's
to say
right.
that sounds like a defining trait of human beings. A lot of human beings is this tendency to this sort of gaslighting thing. It's um it's I guess I realized that once I started stepping out of it. So actually the group has taught me a lot. And just to sort of reinforce what we're about here, so this group is, I mean, Casey's about like 10 years old, and it's always been about horizontal structures, parallel, collaborations, sort of stuff. Um, Yes, because I noticed that this is probably some people might be thinking if there's some anxiety around that, uh, the whole purpose of this project is against those sort of those sorts of norms, uh, and really what I've learned, and sort of back to the subject of gaslighting is that sometimes you don't even know like what's going on until um, you have to step out of it. It kind of reminds you of the comparison with a boiled frog. The incremental increases in temperature, you get used to it, and then eventually it sort of does you in. Uh, but when you're amongst people who don't do that, then you realize how pervasive that is in your everyday interactions. So it was pretty eye-opening for me. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a great conversation topic.
So really quick about gaslighting, though, my kitten gave me an idea. When we first got her, I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and one of them said it's really hard to tell when a cat's injured because it's so dangerous for a cat to show that it's injured in the wild that they'll hide that injury any way possible. So I really feel like this proliferation of gaslighting and lying is a reflection of the fact that we've built such a predatory society that nobody can admit that they've made a mistake or that they were emotional or they were in the wrong in a past situation. So the gaslighting is a reactive, it's a trauma response to just a fear of embarrassment that's on a visceral level.
That's a beautiful point. Wow, beautifully put. Thank you so much for saying that.
I have so many ideas for more hangouts. I know we're coming up to time, so I'm just gonna like wind us down. Just any random thoughts. If you are interested in contributing to a book or have anything that you think we should write about or anything, concerns that we absolutely should not write this book and we are not the right people to do so as non-autistic people, we'd rather hear it now. So I'll put my email in here. And I know that Alice would be happy to hear from you as well. Otherwise, I will see you all. Looks like October 29th is our tentative next date. And I will think about some of these topics and see what we can fit in. I'm kind of interested about maybe lying for October 29th because it's near Halloween where we wear costumes and possibly pretend to be someone or something else. So I like the theme. Also, I'm going to wear a costume. So if you would like to wear a costume, please do. And then, yeah, I'll just stick around for any other random thoughts anyone wants to share. Not that it was ever very formal in the first place, but formal part as much as it was is over. Informal part reigns.
Ariel,
Yeah.
do you have a time for the 29th yet?
We do, but I don't think we've written it down in that message. Let me pull up my calendar though.
Thank you.
I know Roger and I were emailing about it.
I'll have a date. I'm not sure if we decided on a time. Did we?
I think I had thrown some times out there, but we send a lot of emails, so I'm scrolling. We're thinking 3 to 4, like Eastern North American time.
Yeah.
So we'll get that announcement out ASAP.
And again, we're just trying to kind of change the days of the week and the times of day, just so we can try to, at least some people, everyone can at least come to something as our.
I love the way that KC meetings or sessions are so different with that lack of agenda. Like you prepare something in case people need to get going, but then you just these gems from totally different points of view and concerns, and it's just like a smorgasbord. How do you even unpack it? It's beautiful.
Oh, there's a saying that we use a lot, and you can't make this stuff up, and usually it's in a negative way, but this is really honestly, a very beautiful example of how that can go so well.
It's a lot of fun. Thank y'all for hanging out with me today, and I hope we can hang out again soon.
Yes, and please join the KC Facebook page, Cultural Autism Studies at Yale. Put that in Facebook and you can join. Also, the other Facebook page, which I'm blanking on, Social Connectivity for Autism, and we have a new web page. So stay connected, because we're going to have a lot of amazing sessions about all kinds of things. So thank you, Ariel, for today so much. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, there's Facebooks and meetups. Hoping one of the Yale team has the links on hand.
I assume you just search by Casey, right? You can probably find it.
Can you, or is it more private?
Okay.
Oh, sure.
I'm not good at Facebook. I just go click on links when people tell me to.
I detest it.
I'll manage it.
I love all the negative comments on just like any random, post that shows up on your feed. So I try to stay off it as much as possible. It's toxic. So I didn't know that was like an actual term, but it's very, very good descriptor. So thank you so much for sending that.
I was just getting over to the pages to share the links, but thanks.
Nice.
There's a few more there.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm so grateful that we have this community. Everyone is not just welcome. People say that everybody's welcome. We need everyone, every voice, no matter where you're from, no matter your education, your race, your culture. I mean, it's all very, very important to have that in the mix. So please don't be shy.
And if you do be shy, that's okay too. We'll work with shy. Just be here.
Yes, using that as a figure of speech. If you're shy, I am not denigrating you.
You're taking it literally. I'm just riffing. I'm riffing off of it to make a good pun, hopefully. I like puns.
Well, I'll let you guys close out the meeting whenever you're comfortable, if you feel like everybody's had a chance to chime in. And I look forward to seeing everyone next time.
If I can just say thank you to everybody for that being so interesting, and I'm not particularly shy, but did find it quite difficult to work out when to say something because everything was so interesting, and I have the kind of mind that has lots of ideas all at the same time, so being able to actually catch one and go with it can be a real struggle for me at times. Yeah, it's been really interesting, and I love this idea of a kind of emergent, active, dynamic autistic culture. I think it's really fascinating and really exciting to be part of that. I also wanted to thank whose links to your Facebook page is how I came across you, and yeah, it's really good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Maybe we could include a period of silence occasionally in our sessions so that people can process and raise their hands, and we can kind of go down the list to help people have that moment.
I really like that idea, Don, because I was thinking like even spaced out within the sessions, sort of a catch up, maybe like a couple of minutes where it's kind of scheduled in. So it's not, people don't have to ask for it. It's going to be there and people can sort of let some of those thoughts that are flying around, they might settle down a little bit, to a point where the people can feel more comfortable articulating them. And it wouldn't be awkward because it's by design, so I
like that idea, and I would definitely need design to get myself to stop talking because I was definitely that student where, like, if the professor used silence to get anyone to just answer this question, I would do it every time. It works on me. Even if I don't know, I'm gonna guess. The silence. So scheduling it will work for me. And so asking too on tips of how to integrate nonverbal and generally those with higher support needs as well. Super interesting and very necessary. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on that for now, or if we want to wait.
I think part of this project is really figuring it out. I know Dawn has invited a couple folks through the last academic year who are use alternative communicative devices, and I think it's a learning by doing thing, but it's definitely on our radar in terms of finding out or figuring out what's the sort of optimal ways or maybe best practices for making that happen.
I also think that the recordings are helpful, in my experience with those who have higher support needs. A synchronous environment is sometimes very challenging. Not to say that's generalized to everybody for sure, but the recordings are fantastic for just like rewinding, pausing, rewinding, kind of thinking through things again and then participating in a more asynchronous way. I do know several people that really benefit from learning that way, where they can actually, rewind a segment and watch it again to try and like really catch all the bits that they want to.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Marcia, because I know that some folks aren't always comfortable with the recordings, and we've had people say, I'd want to go to the group, but I don't like to be recorded. So it's kind of there's pros and cons to it, but I do think, at the end of the day, this is about culture, and the whole idea of culture is that there has to be some kind of it can't just live beyond it has to live beyond the conversations we have. And it has to, because that's how things build. So, I think that pros and cons, but I do think sort of for the greater, the good of the whole, the whole, the good of the community, I do think, that the recordings, and for the reason that you've also mentioned, are really important.
And do you have ways of anonymizing people? Should probably, for the next meeting, the session, I need to make a card that covers it. But you can blur people out and disguise their voices and things. So.
If you look on the channel, the YouTube channel, there's tons of examples of that. So the idea really is that, we want the information, the content is what we want out there so people can learn from it and build on it, but we would definitely want to respect people's privacy and, preserve the anonymity. So you can look at the channel and see different examples of that, but we've been doing that for some time. It's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, the blurring is really cool. The voice blurring is really cool. But yeah, I also think topics in advance is another way to get it asynchronous. I don't know. I mean, we just I was a little more casual on, but sometimes I have like a more specific invitation or something, like, we've had several sessions and I hosted one where we did it too, where it's like, I'll bring like this for sort of a show and tell kind of system. And so I think that helps with accessibility as well. It gives like another way, if you can prepare before coming to the session and know like what to expect.
We're also on other multiple platforms too. And this is the Zoom talks are probably the meat of it. But we do a lot of stuff on social media, and then a bunch of us are on a Discord server as well. So there's like all these different options, because part of it is that everyone likes different things, and the more variety you give people, I think there's going to be something that they will feel comfortable connecting with.
Does someone have the Discord link? I think Marsha's on it. I don't even have the Discord open right now. Slacking. I'm often on the Discord. If anyone wants to find me, that system works pretty well for me. I'm often on the Discord during my working hours, I should specify. I don't do. No, it's never on Discord. I don't do much outside of my working hours, I will say. A firm work-life separation. So also, if you message me at 9 o'clock at night, my time, and you don't hear from me, it's not personal. I'm just don't have any notifications going to my phone or personal devices. So. I will get back to you.
Making sure those links work, but
Did it go through?
I'm pretty new to Discord myself, so I'm just trying to figure it out.
I mean, it works for me, but I'm already in it. So someone who isn't already in it is probably the best person to tell us.
I'm like stuck on this select a server button, but I don't really use Discord very much, so I'm probably not very helpful, unfortunately. But
Like a no. I remember I had trouble getting in, but I don't. Well, actually, no, it wasn't this Discord I had trouble getting in. There was another one. I should follow up on that one, actually.
Just got a notification that someone joined.
yeah, I think that was me. I don't know. Yeah, it said accept invitation, and then it had me hit a little button and it gave a little. Yeah, well, I speak Spanish. Yeah, that was my undergrad.
Oh, wow.
That was
Awesome.
it was a special interest of mine. The CPA thing didn't happen until, that's a long story, but basically I was like, oh yeah, I like
We would love to
make
hear
money.
it, by the way. Just like
Sure.
at some point.
Sure, yeah. I've given a couple of presentations to I've been volunteering for a program that like helps young adults transition. So I've got one actually that I can give if you guys are interested. I'd be happy to share my story. I'd have to tweak it a little bit. But, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we need to get you in for one of our storytelling sessions where
You just popped on. Brilliant. Please DM me.
Sure thing. So I'm not good with the technology, kind of ironically. Dawn Prince will do. Let me with that. ADHD,
We're all learning together, so
It's a beautiful thing.
Sure.
Awesome.
And by the way, we're starting to get many more languages regularly. And we have some Spanish, translated Spanish sessions coming up.
Should we make
A channel for the Living Ethics series or a round table? I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, no, I think we can do. I'm gonna have to ask Eugene. He's the guru he's the administrator on this. But now I think as many channels as possible because like there's so many cool things to talk about.
Many people. I apologize if I didn't say hi to somebody.
Yeah, one thing I'm fascinated about the Discord thing is like it's a very different mood. When I mean, at least that's how I feel. There's more of an informality that I pick up on the Discord that I don't get like say, if I'm on like Facebook or email. Email's very formal, or feels that way to me. But Discord, you feel that it's just kind of chill, which I like it.
So are you all generating like a subgroup for the Discord right now?
No, I think what I want to ask Eugene to maybe should we just call the channel, we'll just call it like Living Ethics Hangouts?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, then, that's cool too, because then people could drop in ideas there, things that they want to talk about. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a gazillion things, Ariel, so brace yourself.
I love it. Embrace. I'm here for it.
Yeah, so that'll happen. And, I'm going to go through the chat things and I'm going to repost a lot of this information, with the links and the other resources into the Facebook groups. So one of them or both of them in the meetup, just so the information's in different places. So one of those, you should be able to access these links. Right. So if no one has anything else to say, we'll just sort of sign off, and then I'll have that new announcement for the next hangout within the next week or so.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.